very solid way to start the week. It's a Monday, brand new start. As you remember, last week I had kind of a tough week. So this week I want to make sure I'm trading well. And I'm very happy about my trading today, not in terms of PML, but because of the way I traded. I zoned in on the stock I know the best. I focused on the plan I had and I executed really well. And I'm extremely proud about it. So the stock that made my day was MRNA. And it's a stock that I've traded so many times in the past before, whether it's long or short. So it's no surprise that I picked this stock as my main watch on the day. And there were a few other small cap stocks that's kind of gapping up. But as you remember last week, some of the low float small caps been causing people a lot of headache, including myself, like the stocks like IMRN and MXC. So that's why I chose to avoid them today and focus on what I know best. Maybe this is something that can help you out too. Like if you're struggling with the penny stocks, why bother, right? Focus on the large caps. They tend to have more predictable behavior. So MRN, I identified this level as a key level. And once we start rejecting, you can see I started some small pre-market. I want to see how it reacts to the $80 area, right? $80 here, we did have a gap up from 73 all the way to 80, 82. So if it starts to reject $80 again, I want to go short because this stock has a past behavior of filling in at least some downside. Maybe not all the way down here to 74, but maybe a good 6 points to a downside. So I shorted around 80s, added some after we get immediate follow through to the downside. So I had a really nice full size here from initial here, re-entry, and added some more. Covered some into a flush, but I'm adding back all my covers because I know the stock, if it does start to sell off, we get, some pretty decent follow through to the downside. So, cover some here, cover some more, and also out around this low $76 area. If it starts to reject again around the highs, I would have went back in short for maybe a little bit more to $74. But after this, you can see the trend just kind of changed, right? We kind of started holding like higher lows and we're just kind of grinding up higher. So that's why I know the good follow through, it's gone. My trade, the trade I planned for, it's already here. And that's why I didn't go back and go for secondaries and give back some profits like I tend to do when I have tried to go back for the second or third trade in the past before. The other stock that actually did surprisingly well, and I for sure only, didn't expect this much because market at the time was kind of indecisive, was Tesla. And the reason I'm long Tesla, obviously, you can see on the daily we had a huge sell-off last week from pretty much from 1687 all the way down to 1367. And today I'm just looking for some sort of rebound move, and we did get that, but you can see I sold way too early. I longed it here at the test of previous day close. Perfect entry. I'm so happy about this. 1418s. Sold some into this, re-added back once we are testing and consolidating around pre-market highs, and I sold into 1650s. I didn't even make it to 1460s. And you can see the high in the morning was 1480. Wow. So, missed about 30 points to a down upside, but from going long around 1418s added here, that gave me an average about 1430s. 20 something points to upside, that's still pretty decent. Could have made a lot more, but I'm not gonna complain. As you can see, the stock later gave back all the gains and went back to test the exact same low of the day earlier. So it's kind of like an irrational stock sometimes. Just push and then sell off and then push again. So, I'm happy I took the meat of the move and traded well and made it really clean today. So that was a wild day. Holy crap. It's probably the wildest action we've seen in a while. That's comparable to, stocks like DRYS and BPTH, LFIN from a couple of years ago. And I can't believe that this kind of action, this kind of halt on the way up and halt on the way down, this kind of action happened on a stock like KODAK, which is a real company. I did trade the stock yesterday. So this is the chart yesterday. You can see the stock, sold off to about $8 close. And after hours, Donald Trump mentioned the company and mentioned about their business change to pharmaceuticals company. And this is what we call a Trump pump. And the stock squeezed from $8 to $13 after hours. And we get this kind of insane action today from, $12 and then $18 at the open all the way to $60. Holy crap, that's crazy. And this stock, KODAK, the float isn't the float is low for a company like this, and that's why it moved the way it did. This is a lot of shorts, a lot of funds blowing up, and that's how we had, I think, 5 or 6 consecutive holds to the upside, and we have 2 unholds to the downside. Very wild action. I had a short and a long on the stock, and I made more money on the long side. Well, I did take a loss on the short side, you can see, but I'm scaling in small size. Once it didn't work, you can see I cut it right here. And I had a re-short on hold here, about 22. I covered down here, and I have another small long here. And this is where I started longing, around the $17 area. So I had a long here, but it's a starter size because I wasn't sure if it's going to work. But judging from the amount of shorts stuck in the stock, I had some idea. I had a small long here. It's really small, I understand. 17, small size, and I added once it crossed VWAP and started testing the pre-market highs. And I added here. So after this ad, I had an average about 19 somethings, and I sold all the way into the on hold. I even re-added here, and then my best sell was up here around $50. Oh, insane action. I had no idea that it was gonna hold on the way up so many times. And I will admit, a lot of times, after this hold, I really want to get out of all my remaining position, but I literally couldn't. Because after each time, after the hold here and here, it went straight into the next hold to the upside. So I literally could not exit the position, even if I had wanted to. Turned out to be a positive thing in disguise, but I did sell on the way up. But usually you want to get out of most of your position, just in case it goes straight into a downside hold, like this one and this one. So, there's definitely a lot of money to be made on the long side and short side. I did get, one more long here around the $30 mark, and I sold into 37s. I had no idea that's going back to 41 or 50 or, back to 60 for that matter. So I just have to protect my downside and my exposure and not fight the trend. You can see the stock is later now back at $33. So you can't just say, oh, I wish I held the stock from $10 all the way to 60. Nobody could have foreseen this kind of price action, and it's always best to trade your plan. And if this kind of what I call unexpected lucky event happens, then so be it. But you can't really plan for that. So overall, a very nice day. Made small amounts of money on the short side, lost some on the short side as well early on, but majority of the profits is made on the long side once we break out about $22 and hold it on the way up. Okay, so I also need to talk about my loser, of course. The loser is AMD, but I lost on starter size. I never added. I went in long 76.20s, thinking that once we break out above this new all-time high, we're gonna continue higher. And you can see I kind of got trapped and I got stopped here. Literally, I literally stopped at the breakdown of this support level. I stopped out and the stock reclaimed and went on higher. So, lost on starter size about a little bit over $2 a share. No, almost $2 a share. But starter size, small position, small loss. At the time, I'm trying to manage my position on KODAK. So overall, I'm very happy about this. This is one of those situations where, there's 2 things that you cannot fight in the market. Donald Trump, and there's also the Fed. So don't fight both of these things, and in turn maybe you want to long these actions instead. So I was having some issues this morning when I woke up and with my trading laptop, and I couldn't load the execution charts. But there was a lot of good plays yesterday, so I just had to record. My solution is to kind of record on TraderView, since you can import all your trades, and I still have the executions, and I can still talk about it in front of the charts. Hopefully you guys understand and are okay with this. So the stocks that I traded yesterday was KODAK, EDSA, and TAOP. And all of these stocks I traded both on the long side and the short side. Well, except for KODAK. KODAK is the only one that only has the long trade. So you can see, today we're closing. We actually opened the week against yesterday. Yesterday is when we had the run to $60, and we had it doesn't show the pre-market, but pre-market we actually ran up from 30s to 45s, and after the open right here, we just kind of started selling off. And I didn't really see a trade for me because I didn't have shorts available. It was restricted shorts, and so that means I could only long the stock. But I'm just not just gonna buy any random support. I will need to wait until a bottom is set and to potentially go long for a bounce, essentially. So I waited until about almost 11, so like 10:40, 10:50 area. I see the stock dip to around 33. I see it get bought up. This is a 1-minute candle, so the price action after this dip here, the selling slowed down, and that's where I took a starter long. Took a starter long here. I sold some into the push. I was thinking we're gonna retest at least 38, maybe 39, 40 if we're lucky, depending on the volatility. It is midday after all. But after the ad, we did back down a little bit more, back towards 34.80s, but we just kind of started holding. You can see this consolidation stage, and that's where I was really comfortable with adding and letting the trade work to a comfortable size. And once we are holding this trend, we started pushing, sold some into 37s and sold some more into 38, and I was all out. That was a very clean trade. You can see we kind of tried to touch 39 over here, but we never got it. And at the time, it was starting to slow down. You can see down here, the volume is just decreasing from the open. So I'm happy with the bounce. And this gave me an average about 35.30s. After the ad, the average 35.40s, and then, got some, sell around 37.38. So I'm very happy with this bounce play. The other stock I traded, TAOP. So this one didn't show up on my scanner until a lot later. And, a chat room was pumping it. I'm not going to say whom, but it's a low float stock. It was running up on, some news that's, complete bullshit. But you can see the money rotation at the time. The other stock, EDSA, just kind of died down. And at the time, KODAK was dying. So all the buying volume went into TAOP, which is the new runner on the day. You can see the stock, there was no gap whatsoever pre-market. It didn't start running and making a move until 10 o'clock. And that's late for these low floaters, right? You can see the volume increase here right after 10 o'clock. So that's where, I got interested. I was mostly short the stock. I was shorted here, shorted some more. There was a couple of halts. Again, it's a low float stock, extremely volatile. And then I covered into here. By the way, I was never red on this trade. I was really conservative with the short at the same time because the stock was on SSR. So my size on the stock was relatively short. I covered here into the support here, covered some more. And this artificial move after this dip right down to $6, I'm so glad I covered. They immediately, prop this back up to $10. Like, this kind of action can only be done with artificial buying volume, and it's not unnatural on these low float stocks. But here I actually got some long scalps, really small. I'm really scared to buy these kind of low float stocks, especially when the company is clearly dilutive. If you look at the daily chart on TAOP, you can see that. So that's why I can long this, but I don't want to hold it for too long. It's the same way with EDSA, which I'll show you later on. So longed here, sold into the rip, and longed some more and sold. And then this is where I flipped a little bit short, conservative size, covered. You can see they did the exact same thing here. After this dip, they immediately ripped it back up again. But I stayed away from this after the covers, and this is where I started shorting again. This short here, I will say it's a little bit more aggressive because there was no clear top. But at the same time, you have to understand that we've been running from 10 o'clock all the way to 11 and 11:30, all from the artificial volume of the same source that I mentioned earlier. So at some point, the buyers are going to exhaust and they're going to give up. And that was kind of the idea here. I did scale in shorts here after we consolidated up here for a while, but I didn't get too big. I didn't want to get too aggressive on this kind of play, because if it does break 15, I'm going to have to cut for a loss. It's a manageable loss, and I'm okay with that. You can see we consolidated for a long time, and this is where we got the sell off. They pulled the rug, pulled the bid, and the stock immediately tanks from 14 all the way to almost 11. So that's what I covered, and I just left this chart alone. You can see the stock later on just kind of traded sideways for a bit and then tanked at the end of the day, but I was all gone for that part. Okay, so I couldn't get the chart to work to show me all the executions because I definitely had more trades than this. Okay, so for this trade, I did have some long pre-market, so that's where I made half of the profits on EDSA, but it's not showing. So you kind of just have to believe that I did play it long pre-market. I mean, you can... No, this doesn't show the pre-market trades either. Okay, well, I did trade the stock pre-market. It's just not showing. So I longed it here pre-market. Pre-market, if you look at the intraday chart on EDSA, it ran up parabolic from about $10 all the way to 18. I did have some long here. They're on stock pre-market, and after the open, this is where I started shorting. I actually had a long right at the opening ramp for like only $1, 13 to 14 or something like that, and then I flipped short. I had a lot more executions than this, but it's just not showing, and I don't know how the fuck to get this stupid website to work. And I'm swearing way too much for this video, so you kind of just have to believe me that I traded the stock and I made the money on the long side and then the short side. Even if you don't believe me, it's okay too. It doesn't bother me. And the reason the stock, I was leaning in short bias after the open, especially after it went parabolic, is because of the daily chart. This is a stock I traded in mid-June. I remember I was still in the quarantine hotel. They did exactly the same move. They parabolic up and then just straight up sold off after the open. So I'm just trading the exact same behavior it did only a month ago. So overall, I'm really happy with how I traded today, both on the long side and the short side. I didn't outstay on the longs, and I was relatively patient with my short on EDSA. I think my best cover was about 12, but it's just not showing on this stupid trader view chart. It's been a really good week, and I can't wait to see what happens on Friday.